Some of you may have noticed that while I embarked on a grand campaign to overhaul all of the video demonstrations throughout the course, my last such video came out about 6 months ago. This video recording is actually from the spring, but for some reason I never recorded the voiceover for this one. I couldn't tell you why, but here I am doing it over again. The short of it is this: our apartment flooded and we had to put all of our equipment into storage, effectively pausing the overhaul. It's been a pretty rough time, but now everything's back in order again, so let's get right into it. We're going to be taking a look at the funnels exercise. This one is pretty straightforward. We draw a sort of funnel shape consisting of an arc on either side and a straight line down the middle. Then, we try to draw ellipses within that shape, keeping them aligned to the straight line and snug between the arcs. Start by drawing a straight line on your page, maybe of about 3 or 4 inches long, and mark out its approximate midpoint. This is going to be the minor axis line we use when aligning our ellipses later. Then, we get to the tricky part. We're going to have to draw some arcs. Freehanding these can be a real pain, and will end up distracting you from the main focus of the exercise. So instead of getting caught up in that, we're going to try and find some circular objects to use as a template. I've picked out a few different objects just to see what would work best. Note that everything I've used here are basically household objects: a roll of tape, a jar lid, and perhaps the easiest thing to find, a dinner plate. You won't need to get each one of these. Rather, I'm testing to see what we should be looking for in a circle template. I often find that taking the time to lay out all of these marks on the page first, before getting into drawing any ellipses, helps to bring my mind from whatever it may have been worrying about previously into a calmer, more focused state. I have in the past seen students try to create printable and reusable sheets with all of these marks already present, and I can understand what they're going for there, but I do feel that skipping over the meditative process of laying out a page and getting it ready is a missed opportunity. With these marks in place, we finish up by drawing a line at our marked endpoints, perpendicular to the minor axis. A transparent ruler like this one, with the red grid line set across it, can be quite useful when we need to make lines perpendicular to one another. I found it to be especially valuable when laying out rectangular frames, which we'll run into quite a bit in the next section of this lesson. Anyway, once everything's down, we start drawing our ellipses. There are 2 variants of this exercise, and we're going to focus on the simpler one to start, as we get used to what's being asked of us here. Simply draw ellipses with the same degree or width within the funnel. Try your best to keep them aligned such that the minor axis cuts them into 2 equal, symmetrical halves down their narrowest dimension. You will make little mistakes, but keep striving to keep them as well aligned as you can. And of course, try to keep them snug between the arcs as well. And as with all ellipses we freehand throughout this course, be sure to use the ghosting method. Execute the marks with your whole arm from the shoulder and draw through them 2 full times before lifting your pen. With a few of these under your belt, let's look at the more advanced version of this exercise. There's only really one change. We're going to look at that perpendicular crossbar as being an ellipse with a degree of 0. And as we move out from the center, we're going to draw our ellipses so they get wider. So right in the middle, they're at their narrowest, and out to the ends, they're at their widest. This represents how, when looking at a cylindrical structure like a tube, a pipe, or a sausage, the circular cross-sections will be seen as getting narrower as they slide towards the viewer's position, and wider as they move farther away. This is what I demonstrated in the ellipses video, with my little cardboard ellipse cutouts. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about now, be sure to go back and watch that video again. And that's pretty much it. As with any exercise that has multiple levels to it, it's critically important that you go through those levels one at a time, giving yourself ample room to get acquainted with what the basic version asks of you before moving on to the more advanced one. Students often have a habit of getting ahead of themselves, thinking that they're going to get more out of spending all their time on the advanced one, but in so doing, they only distract themselves from getting the basic principles of the exercise down. You'll also note that you will make plenty of mistakes. just as I have here, especially in the alignment of your ellipses. Don't worry about it. That's a perfectly normal part of the process. Just be sure to go back over your page when you're done and identify the spots where your alignments were off, and by how much. It is in identifying our mistakes that we put ourselves in a position to learn from them. That's it for this one, but I'll have a short additional video going over the most common mistakes we see in this exercise next.